G'day, mate. How the bloody hell are you? Welcome to In the Back of My Head podcast, episode 75. It's a weekly creative journal where I talk about creativity and whatever's in the back of my mind. And today's episode might be a little bit more rambly. I just do these to clear some clutter in my head, try and make some sense of some things that I am thinking on, musing on, or just experiencing lately. And if you get anything out of that as well, fan-bloody-tastic. I couldn't imagine anything better. But if not, move on. Don't worry about it, mate. I'll see you next time. So I had a whole other topic planned out for this week, which I shall now move to next week, for it shall require a little bit more planning. Or maybe not. Maybe I will treat that one as well as a mindless ramble. But I got some notes for it. Speaking on the state of AI and where we're kind of headed with it, which is, endless videos and podcasts on that, so I'm not really adding anything in particular. But instead, I wanted to talk about a game that I've been playing called 9 Souls. And if you're a gamer yourself, then a lot of this will kind of make some sense, and if not, I will try and give as much context as I possibly can. But I'm also kind of pretty new to this style of game. And what I want to talk about with 9 Souls is its difficulty. Because 9 Souls is a 2D platformer, action, Souls-like adventure game. Very lore heavy, very rich in its writing, very beautiful. My god, the illustration is incredible. It's all hand illustrated graphics. It looks gorgeous. It's set in a Dao-punk world, as in kind of the Chinese philosophy, Chinese mythology. It's part sci-fi, part Chinese mythology, and the style of gameplay feels quite tied to that. There's a series of games which I'm sure, if you're a gamer at all, or if you know a gamer, live with a gamer, then you are aware of, which is Dark Souls, which is a series of games that is notorious for being difficult. And difficult in a way that is purely by design. I feel like when I was younger, difficult games, looking back on them, I realized that they're just terribly designed games. Clunky. You are fighting against a computer that is poorly operating, is not really there for your input, if that makes sense. You're not trying to outsmart the computer. You're just trying to learn the intricate ways of how this was programmed, that I need to be 1 pixel to the left and then I'm okay. To make this jump, I need to be literally a 0.01 of a millisecond precise with my jumping skills, with my movement skills, what have you. Stupid game design. Not all games. But back in the day, I'm talking about early 2000s of gaming as a child, there was some bullshit. But Dark Souls is by design very difficult. You must study a boss fight. When you come up to a final fight, when you come up to the boss of a level, or the boss of an area, you are going to die again and again and again. You are going to have to learn to read the boss, understand their moves, understand how they are telegraphing what they're about to do next, and get used to it. And I suck at these games. I've never played a Dark Souls game. I mean, I've played for about maybe an hour total of all the Dark Souls games, because every time I do, I despise it. I've never been one for difficult games in general, but I've never been one especially for dying a lot in repetition. I've never been one for staying calm in a fight in a video game, learning the moves, understanding what I'm doing wrong and getting better. I throw myself in like a fucking reckless dickhead. I recognized this when I used to play Halo with my brother, is that he was quite methodical. He would run into a room and he understood where he needed to be, how he needed to move in a way that would kind of either confuse the enemy or just put him in a place that would give him the optimum chances for survival. And I was running guns blazing, throw a bunch of grenades and then die. Every single time. And I could never actually take the time to think about what I was doing and get better at it. And so now, this year especially, but over the past year and now moving forward, I am actively trying to, in the words of the Dark Souls community, get good. But not for the purpose of just being good at a video game, not for the purpose of just 100%ing a video game. Because that's something that occurred to me, was how little I give a shit when it comes to finishing, and I mean not finishing as in finishing a storyline of a video game, but rather finishing 100%ing it, collecting all the collectibles, defeating every enemy, finding every secret, all that kind of shit. I get desperately bored with all that. And I found that due to my new love and fascination with Metroidvanias. I'm not going to go into the history of Metroidvanias or go into that, because this is not a gaming channel, this is an arts channel, but this is all going to tie into something, I hope. Again, bit of a ramble today's episode, but that's fine. But Metroidvanias are usually lore-rich. They usually involve a lot of exploration, a lot of progression of your character. You are leveling up, you are finding new items, you are bolstering your abilities and your powers, and you are getting better, and you are defeating boss after boss after boss to finally discover this whole world, put all the pieces together, understand how the lore works, and get to the final boss, defeat that person, defeat that enemy, and finish the storyline. And that's where I tap out. That's where I'm done. Once I finish that final boss fight, I'm out. I'm good. However, there's usually a place for replays, reruns, run-throughs. New Game Plus is what it's usually called. It's, alright, you've done it once, now do it again, but with tougher enemies. Maybe you'll keep some of your abilities from the first run, and now you're doing a second run, but it's harder this time, and you have to be even better this time. And I'm good. No, I did it once. I'm out, mate. Doing it for the sake of just doing it, just for the sake of then you get to feel like, oh, I'm really good at this game. It just doesn't do it for me. I need more lore. I need more storyline. I want to feel something. I want to feel some sort of progression, rather than just my own skill set, which is, I don't know if that could be read into in any way, but there's different kinds of gamers. And so games like Dark Souls have always eluded me for those reasons. One, I guess, the way that they present their world building, their lore, and their storyline is not super accessible. It's usually within hidden objects, hidden items, and things like that. Things that you have to discover, which is both very exciting, but also if you're already kind of hitting that wall of gameplay and then you also need that storyline to push you forward, then yeah, it might. I can see why it hasn't grabbed me. Unfortunately, I love the worlds of Dark Souls. I love those worlds. They're dark, they're grim, they're gothic, they're awful, they're fantastic. I love them. The atmosphere is incredible and I want to get into them. The other reason why I can't get into them is for that same reason of I run into a room gung-ho throwing grenades and blasting my fucking way in shooters and in fantasy role-playing games such as Dark Souls. I feel I can't settle into it and be methodical. I can't take my time and actually understand the weaknesses of every enemy and just keep my head. I can't keep a level head. But that's my goal now, is to keep a level head. But again, I'm actually talking about this not because of just to get good at video games finally, but rather that mindset of feeling centered and calm, feeling calm in a situation, not letting the blood rise at all when you get into a difficult situation, just staying relaxed so that you actually might make a logical decision. So you might watch patterns emerge. So you might watch the ways that the enemies are going to telegraph their next move, and so that you may counter that next move. And so that's the thing with Nine Souls. It is taking after a game called Sekiro, which is in the same vein and genre as, and I believe by the same developer as the Dark Souls series, where it is not about dodging attacks, it is rather about countering attacks. And so when an enemy attacks you, you must deflect at just the right moment. You must hit the button at just the right moment when their hit is about to hit you. It's watching a sword fight. Sekiro is set in a kind of like a samurai world, right? So we're talking sword fights. Same thing, let's talk about Star Wars or talk about anything, right? The ultimate sign of a master is they're not running from attacks, they are just simply dodging and deflecting each attack. And I struggle with that because my blood rises and I panic. And Nine Souls are the same. Nine Souls is entirely based around that mechanic, that you must deflect. You cannot run, you cannot dodge. You can dodge a little bit, but you can't win this game without deflection, without countering these attacks. And when I first went into it, I thought, I gotta get better timing. I have to get better at my timing. That's fine. I'm a musician. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. No, of course not. I don't think so. But I thought to myself, I have to get good at timing. That's the key here. I have to hear the way that their weapons move and then just fall into a nice rhythm so that it just becomes second nature to counter their attacks. And that's true. That's kind of what I'm aiming for. But I realized that what I'm actually needing to do, what I actually need to develop right now, is a sense of calm. Is my blood cannot boil, my temper cannot rise, I cannot panic. If I panic in any way, then I fail immediately. I get hit. And I can't react to that. If I get hit, then I must, again, stay calm, stay centered, and respond accordingly to the situation. And I'm really bad at that in video games. I think in general. Maybe not, I don't know, but video games I definitely struggle. I'm trying to tie my way of operating in hospitality situations and event situations where there is stakes, where there is chaos, where you are in a maelstrom and you must act accordingly, which is calmly. Just make split decisions instantly. Don't worry about it. Keep moving. Move on to the next thing. When something happens, you respond. That's where my head is at a lot of the time when I haven't worked on the floor in hospitality in a long time, but that's what I used to, and that used to be where I would flourish the most, is in those situations. Once my brain kind of shut the fuck up, I got into the flow state, and that's what I'm looking for in this game. But then there's games that are like this that I feel are hard, very, very difficult, for the sake of you getting good at it, for you overcoming that obstacle, and you will get a sense of achievement. And that's all well and good. But again, I'm looking at this for the lore, I'm looking at this for the storyline. And so if I'm playing a hard as fuck game, I want that difficulty to be tied to the game in a way that actually makes sense. And this is actually true for Nine Souls. It took me a little bit of time to recognize that, but I was like, why does this storyline need to be told through a game that is so difficult? What is that all about? And I started to realize that this is Tao Punk. T-A-O. This is Tao Punk. Is it Tao Punk? I remember saying Tao when I was a kid and then I got corrected to being Tao, so I'm not actually sure. We'll say Tao Punk. This is about Chinese mythology, this is about Chinese philosophy, this is about staying present, staying calm in the moment, and a lot of the storyline is about that. A lot of the storyline, and this is not spoilers, I'm not telling you any storyline about this game because I'm very fresh into it, but a lot of it is around like keeping a level head, but moving quickly. You have to think about the way your enemies are moving around in the storyline as well, and you encounter a lot of teachers in the game that are there to work you through this process of remaining centered, remaining calm, finding your flow state, finding your place in this moment in time, and just being part of it. And once I realized that, I was like, okay. That's why this game needs to be hard. Does it need to be hard? I don't know. I don't know if it needs to be hard. There is actually a mode of this game that is not as hard. You can turn it up. You can go into story mode and experience the story without the difficulty. But is the difficulty tied to this work of art as a way of communication? And so that's now kind of where I'm heading with this. This is now what my mind is trying to make sense of. At what point is a game too hard that it actually is hurting the story, because the story is not going to be told, because you're going to get frustrated with it? And where is that line where it's hard enough that it draws you into that storyline, that it makes every accomplishment that much sweeter and actually broadens the storyline, actually gives it emotional depth that wouldn't have been there without it? I've spoken much more extensively on another game on this channel, but I think I want to kind of draw it back to that, because these two seem totally different sides of the coin in terms of how their difficulty is approached. However, their difficulty seems so tied thematically to the game that to take it away would maybe ruin the whole point, the whole theme of the game. And I find that deeply fascinating. And the other game I'm talking about, of course, if you've listened to this podcast for a little while, then is Pathologic 2, which is a game that completely changed my perspective on art. It is deeply inaccessible due to being so difficult. And it's not difficult in the same way, the combat is clunky for sure, but it's not necessarily hard. You don't need to learn how moves are being choreographed in the same way. You're not doing any of that. It's more of a resource management. You're managing your hunger, your thirst, your sleep deprivation, all these kind of different things. And the biggest one, time. You're trying to save a town that is dying from the plague, and you can't save everyone. You must manage your time and your hunger and your thirst and all these things in this delicate juggling balance, and you can't do it all. You are going to lose people. You're a doctor. You're trying to save people, and you're going to lose people. And this game is one of the hardest games I've ever played, and it seems to be the general consensus online that is true for most people as well. But that's the point of the game, because that game is designed at its very core to make you suffer. You are supposed to have a bad time playing this game. And that makes the storyline, that makes the lessons, that makes everything that you learn through the game that much more impactful, because you are suffering along with the character. Because if you were a godlike character like you are in most video games, then it wouldn't hit the same. If you weren't starving, then you wouldn't understand how everyone else is starving in this village that you were trying to save. You can't take that away. You can't take that away. If you take away the difficulty of Pathologic 2, would it be the same game? I don't think it would be. I've spoken about the experiences I had with that game of trying to play it right. And by right, I mean not hurt anyone, trying to play the role of a doctor, trying to do the right thing, trying to save as many people, and at every turn the game would push back and say, no, you have to stoop to this level if you want to just live to see the next day. And I said, no, I'm trying my darndest, as you would in a situation like that. You would try not to steal food from the innocent that you were trying to save. You would not murder anyone that you would try and then rob them just so that you could eat, thinking that maybe you'll save some more. You would try and rummage in bins and things like that, or try and do quest lines and get people to help you. But at a certain point, you hit a certain level of desperation where there's nothing left to do. I have to go into a part of the town that is already plague-ridden, that was already evacuated, and start looting. And then suddenly, oh shit, there's a guy here, he's trying to kill me. In a moment of desperation, you take him out and you feel like, damn it, it's not what I'm supposed to be doing. This is wrong, this is not good. But the game has pushed you to that point. That was a profoundly impactful experience that I had playing that game. And because of that, it made the themes of plague and starvation and hunger and thirst and sleep deprivation and just desperation in general so much more visceral and real, because that was the feeling that I was going through. So to make that game any less difficult would potentially ruin that experience. I think it would ruin that experience. You could still read the dialogue and still enjoy the fantastic writing, the fantastic storyline, but it wouldn't be the same. And I'm wondering the same with Nine Souls, because I am pissed off. I'm not having a fun time. However, the immense joy and sense of calm that took over me when I got my first enemy from perfect counters, when I was just like, well, trying to be zen, trying to act zen as the game is pushing you to do, to stay level-headed, just walk into a fight and they attack you and go bam, 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 done, not a problem, moving on. When I got that, and also the sound design of the game is fucking fantastic, and so when you get a perfect deflection, when you get a perfect counter, you get a nice little gong sound, and it's just hits you. Ooh, that's tasty. That's a tasty time. So when I get a little bit of that, a little bit of dopamine, but also I felt calm and relaxed in it. And so I'm hoping that then the rest of this game, as these themes of Zen, these themes of Dao-Punk, these themes of being present, being centered, come through, maybe they will be more impactful, because that is, I'm actively trying to do that. I'm really deeply fascinated by any art form that is there to challenge you just as much as it is there to give you just pure dopamine enjoyment. In the same sense, it's like a horror movie. Like a horror movie is a bad time. You're scared. That's not a fun thing to be. But it's not necessarily a fun thing to be. It's just a visceral human experience you get to have in a nice, safe, controlled environment. In a sense, that movie is almost actively trying to hurt you. That's obviously a deep exaggeration, but like, I think you see what I mean. Then when it gives you a jump scare, that isn't to be like, oh, I'm just here for the fun of it. No, that's like, I know that if I give you this, then I'm going to raise your blood pressure and you're going to be on edge for the rest of the film, and so you're going to have a real anxious time, because you're here for an anxious time. You want to feel anxiety. You came here to feel anxiety. If you watch your favorite sitcom or cartoon or what have you, then you are there for that, and it's like, nice, yeah, it's like a warm bubble bath of art. And sometimes you want to be stabbed repeatedly in the guts because, like, oh, I just want to feel something. I fucking hate the Dark Souls community. Part of the Dark Souls, I don't mean all of the Dark Souls community. Part of the gaming community that is just like, just get good. You suck at the game, just get good. Some games are also hard for the sake of being hard, and I don't think they're necessarily tied thematically together. If that's what you're into, then sweet. That's like bullet hell games. If you know bullet hell games, then yeah, okay, cool, sweet. There's loads of games out there that are just seemingly difficult for the sake of, I don't know, you feel accomplished at the end. That's not for me. But I do want to get calm and relaxed and good at these kind of games, so that I can experience these storylines and these lore and the world building and all that kind of stuff. See how I go though. Alright, that's me rambling on about art, video games, and tying difficulty to your experience, to the experience of storyline and world building. Hope that was somewhat enjoyable in any way, shape or form. If you're a gamer, if you're playing Dark Souls, if you're playing Nine Souls, if you are playing any game that is difficult, comment below if that was difficult for the sake of it, or if it was difficult because it was tied thematically to it. If you give a shit, if that's of interest to you. Do you think the game would be the same without that difficulty? Anyway, I'll hit you on the next one, mate. Be well, mate. Be well.